When Conrad said,
Okay. Fine. Have it your way. I'm not pretending for you anymore.
he was not playing around, because at the rehearsal and the rehearsal dinner, he's not holding back from his classic yearning gazes at Belly, or all of his non-verbal cues that he's giving her. When Belly walks in, she asks, is he insane? Why is he even here? And it's just a reminder that she can't even be around him. He stirs up that much emotion in her. Belly has to tell herself to just ignore Conrad, which I find really interesting because if she wasn't feeling anything for him or he wasn't affecting her in any way, I don't think she would need to make a conscious effort to ignore him. She would just be focused on Jeremiah and the rehearsal naturally without it being something that she had to put all of this effort towards. She seems to really want to get a chance to talk with Jeremiah before the rehearsal, and I think using Jeremiah as her kind of touchstone when she's feeling so agitated by Conrad being there tells us a lot. It ties back into a line at the end of the episode where Jeremiah actually says to Belly that you can't marry me to erase Conrad, and I think that's kind of being mirrored here and throughout the entire series, to be quite honest, where she's feeling all of these feelings about Conrad being there. She's agitated by him, which we know why, and she's seeking out Jeremiah, and she's kind of trying to bury herself in Jeremiah as a way to distract herself, I guess, from what she's feeling about everything going on with Conrad. So then we see the scene of Belly walking down the aisle for her rehearsal, and the way Conrad is looking at her, again, it's his classic look of longing that we all know very well by now. I love the contrast between the way that all three of these guys are looking at Belly as she comes to the end of the aisle. Jeremiah seems, like he's beaming, kind of clueless. Conrad looks so down, it's actually kind of sad, and he's still kind of holding that yearning look for her. And then I actually thought it was really cute and sweet the way that Steven is looking at his little sister. Throughout the rehearsal dinner itself, it's obvious that he's just in her head, which I guess isn't that surprising. I think for anybody, if your ex-boyfriend, who also happens to be your fiance's brother, tells you right before your wedding that he's still in love with you, obviously I think anybody would be affected by that. But I just really think that if Belly had no feelings for him whatsoever, as she's still claiming at this point in the episode, she wouldn't be this affected. It would be something she could kind of brush off. She's just obviously very stirred up, and she can't stop thinking about him. She can't stop looking over at him. She's very aware of his presence and where he is in the room. Like I said, when Conrad said he wasn't pretending anymore, he wasn't kidding, because he just keeps gazing over at Belly. He is out of the corner of every sort of frame in this scene. You see him looking over at Belly over his drink, just kind of checking out what she's doing, looking at her and Jeremiah. We even hear Belly say this in her internal dialogue.
All night I haven't looked in his direction, but I always know where he is. I am painfully aware of him.
And the first time during the dinner that Belly kind of sneaks a glance over at him and he's looking back at her, she says, I am painfully aware of him. And I really wish I could just say to Belly, if it's painful, that means something. If it's painful to be aware of his presence, that really means something about your feelings and your emotions towards him. And in that moment where Belly and Conrad are staring at each other across the dinner table, Jeremiah comes over to ask Belly if they're ready to give their toast. And the way he looks over at Conrad tells me that he caught them looking at each other, or he's kind of noticed this tension between them. I have to refer back to the video I posted a few days where I essentially said Jeremiah knows Conrad could take his girl if he wanted, because it's true. He is very aware of all of the little glances between them, and like I said, the tension between them. And this is kind of explained later in the episode when we learned that Jeremiah did in fact know about Christmas, but at this point in the episode we don't technically know that yet, and so it's interesting to see him noticing the dynamic between Conrad and Belly. It's interesting to me as well that Belly says about Conrad that at any moment he could blow this thing up. And that statement would only apply if she has feelings for him as well. Because if somebody confesses their love to you right before your wedding, they could only blow this thing up if you have some feelings back for them. If you don't, they can't blow anything up. You're going to go ahead with the wedding as planned. So I just found that statement to be really fascinating. And the way Jeremiah looks at Conrad when he catches Conrad and Belly kind of staring at each other reminded me so much of the scene in episode, I think it was 7, in the bar where Jeremiah is telling Conrad that really creepy, unsettling line where he said, Belly and I only need each other now, we're family, you get that, right? He's kind of smiling at Conrad in that same sort of over-forced smile that we saw back in that episode. It's obviously a smile that's intended to send Conrad a message. So then when Belly and Jeremiah are doing their speech and their toasts, and they're kind of going around the table and talking about all the friends and family members who mean something to them, and they get to Conrad, I was on the edge of my seat trying to predict what Jeremiah might say, because as we all know, Conrad and Jeremiah don't really have a straightforward relationship, and their history is a little bit messy and complex. And you even see Conrad here looking kind of very expectantly on the edge of his seat as well, wondering what Jeremiah might say. Adam as well he's kind of side-eyeing Jeremiah. I think everybody's just really curious what Jeremiah might have to say. And Jeremiah does call out in his toast for Conrad that they haven't always gotten along, and everybody kind of has a laugh about that. And then what he ultimately says after a bit of a pause is, you're loyal as hell.
Like most brothers, sometimes we're best friends. And other times, But man, you're loyal as hell. I really respect that. Brothers to the end.
And again, I think this is Jeremiah sending Conrad a message. I don't think he's necessarily calling him loyal or complimenting him on how loyal he is. I think he's reminding Conrad that he should be loyal, as in loyal to Jeremiah, as in he won't betray him by, trying to swoop in and take Belly. Again, like I said in my previous videos, I know Belly has agency and choice. I'm just kind of using the language that might kind of cater to what's going on in Jeremiah's mind at this point. And even during this speech, something I noticed is that Belly doesn't look at Conrad once. It seems like she's making, again, a very conscious effort not to. She looks a little bit tense and she's only looking at Jeremiah. Jeremiah finishes his toast for Conrad saying, "Brothers till the end," and we see a really brief flashback of the two of them at the summer house in season 1 when they were younger. And again, I don't think Jeremiah is necessarily complimenting Conrad here. I think he's reminding him that he needs to be loyal, and I think he's playing on the fact that Conrad really does care about his word. And I know Jeremiah might not realize that Conrad made that promise to Susanna, but I just think he's kind of playing on Conrad's vulnerabilities a little bit. Maybe there was a little bit of a genuine nature to his speech, I don't really know, but I'm also coming into it with the knowledge that Jeremiah knew about what happened at Christmas, and so I just kind of question his motivations. And also just the nature of Jeremiah's character, I guess. I do feel like he has a little bit of a scheming side to him, so I was questioning, how sincere he really was. But obviously what he said I think worked on some level, because we see Conrad having that quick flashback when Jeremiah says brothers to the end, and then he just kind of nods. You do see Conrad trying really hard to keep a brave face throughout this dinner. After the speeches are done, Jeremiah says to Belly, "I cannot wait to marry you tomorrow," and then they kiss, and you see Conrad kind of look very affected by it, but he forces this little smile onto his face and looks down. I can't imagine this whole rehearsal and the rehearsal dinner was very easy for him. So when Adam comes up to talk to Belly and Jeremiah after their speech, he says something that really stuck with me.
Really helped Jeremiah come into his own.
And the reason I think that this stuck with me and was so notable to me is because while Belly may have been helping Jeremiah come into his own, I don't know that I could personally say in my opinion that Jeremiah has been doing the same for Belly. So that kind of feels a little bit one-sided. If anything, I think she has backslid a lot in her relationship with Jeremiah. She gives up a lot for him. She kind of tends to bend to his whims and what he wants. And the biggest one that we're going to lead into with the next part of this scene as well is that she gave up her internship in Paris for Jeremiah. This is a lot more clear if you've read the books. Just a very brief book spoiler in case you haven't read them yet, but you're planning to. But in the books, it actually touches on a lot more in detail how Belly genuinely feels like she gives up a lot of herself for Jeremiah. Like, she'll eat the food he wants to eat, she'll do what he wants to do, she'll hang out with his friends rather than her own. So we get a little bit more of that insight from Belly in the books, but it's indirectly shown in the show as well. So that comment really struck a chord with me, that she's been helping Jeremiah come into his own, but unfortunately the same hasn't been really happening for her in return. So then Adam reveals that Jeremiah has accepted the job that he offered him at his company, and it starts next month, and Belly pulls Jeremiah to the side because she's really confused. This is the first she's heard about this job.
Partners are thrilled you're taking the job. Then what to me? Proud of you, son. Thanks, Dad.
Sure.
Yeah.
What was that about?
My dad offered me a job, and I said yes, and it starts next month.
You said yes without consulting me?
Jeremiah kind of tells Belly like it's no big deal that his dad offered him a job and he accepted, and it'll be starting next month. And I was really proud of Belly for saying to him, "You said yes without consulting me." I'm glad she at least said that. You can see here she's visibly upset about it, which she should be. That's, they are supposedly about to get married, and that's a really big decision that they should have at least talked about together, or he should have, like she said, consulted her beforehand.
I thought you'd be proud of me.
Yeah, I am. What about school?
I'll finish it online.
Okay, so you're just moving to Boston?
Oh, no. I'll make the commute from our place. Like, if you don't want me to do it, then I won't.
You know what? If working for your dad is what you want, then I want it for you too.
And when Jeremiah said to Belly, "I thought that you'd be proud of me," two things came to mind for me. One, he just seems really immature, the way he's, presenting this as though he's kind of really eager for his approval, but also very clueless about the fact that this would and should make her angry. And then it also seems slightly manipulative, because it kind of works. She follows that, question with, "Oh yeah, I am proud of you." It's not about whether or not she is proud of you. It's that you are a partner couple. You are supposed to be getting married soon, and you should be making your big decisions that affect each other together. So Belly presses for some more details and asks him, where will you be living? Will you be commuting? Jeremiah tells her that he'll be working out of Boston. And she doesn't bring up the fact that she declined the internship in Paris so that they could apparently be together. And now Jeremiah is going to be taking this job and working in Boston. And her plans were kind of derailed under the guise of them spending time together as newlyweds. And now it turns out he's not even going to really be there anyway. And unfortunately, Belly doesn't even bring up Paris. And I understand in the moment, maybe like a lot of things were going through her mind. She was kind of thinking a mile a minute. She was upset with him and kind of confused about what's going on. So maybe her mind didn't even go there. I certainly know sometimes it's hard in the moment to say the perfect thing and afterwards you wish you had said it. But this decision hugely affects her, and she's kind of trying to broach that with him, and he's brushing it off as though it's no big deal. And so they kind of resolve this fight, and I would use air quotes on resolve, the way they typically do, where Jeremiah kind of deflects. Belly doesn't seem to want to push any further and engage in any further conflict. She kind of caves, and they make up, so to say, in that way. I mean, Jeremiah even says, if you don't want me to do it, then I won't. He's giving her this kind of indirect ultimatum, putting her in that driver's seat to be the bad guy if she says, oh, I don't want you to do it, which is so unfair to her. This is like a lose-lose situation for Belly, and it really frustrates me that Jeremiah is still kind of engaging in these sort of manipulation tactics. Whether or not he's doing it intentionally or consciously, I don't really know. I won't go there. But at the end of the day, this is a form of manipulation. Meanwhile, Belly's glancing over at Conrad, who is looking at them. I'm assuming he can kind of hear at least the gist of what they're talking about. Like she said, she's painfully aware of him, and I couldn't help but think in that precise moment about the fact that a few episodes ago when Belly was telling Conrad about her potential internship in Paris and how she's not planning to go anymore, Conrad was quite encouraging in telling her that you should go at any time, just so vastly different from Jeremiah. I mean, it doesn't even seem to cross Jeremiah's mind that Paris is a factor in this whole thing. He's the one who kind of discouraged her from going or made her feel like as newlyweds he would want to spend as much time with her. And now he's taken this job in Boston, and it doesn't even seem to be on his radar that, hey, Belly turned down her internship in Paris and now you're going to go off and take this job. Like, it's just doesn't even seem to be like a thought in his head. So Belly, like I said, backs off and caves and says, if working for your dad is what you want, then that's what I want too. Again, Jeremiah's happiness and desires just always seem to come first. And I also can't help but notice that she makes that statement right after glancing over at Conrad, who is watching them, and she's aware that he's watching them. And there's a part of me that wonders if she just wants to make it appear as though she's resolved the fight, because she has dug her heels in with Conrad and made it sound like Jeremiah is the love of her life and they have this great relationship. Now he's watching them kind of argue about this issue of the job in Boston, and it seems like she just wants to make it appear as though the fight is resolved and they're happy and it's case closed, everything's fine. So now the rehearsal dinner is over, and as they're leaving, Jeremiah and Belly decide that they're going to go with a couple people to get ice cream. Conrad comes out right at that moment, and Jeremiah asks him if he wants to join, and something happens that I think could be easy to miss, but it's really interesting. When Jeremiah asks Conrad if he wants to join them, Conrad very quickly looks over at Belly, just with his eyes. He does it very subtly, and Belly does the smallest shake of her head no. It's just like, it's so quick and it's almost imperceptible to the eye when you're just like quickly watching. I had to go back and see if I saw what I thought I was seeing, but it's definitely there, and I'm going to show it here in slow-mo so that we can all see it together.
Hey, come on. A bunch of us are grabbing some ice cream. You want to join? Yeah, man, I think I'm just gonna head back to the house.
So I just thought it was interesting for a couple of reasons. Conrad's taking his cues from Belly, and again, like I've mentioned before, if Belly did not have feelings for him, I don't think she would care that much if he joined them for ice cream. Even having confessed his love to her, it wouldn't be something that really affects her, but she wants to stay away from him. She wants to keep him away, and it kind of goes back to what I said in one of my previous videos. Belly's only really able to stay in her happy little bubble with Jeremiah as long as Conrad's not around, because Conrad's presence is a giant waving flag in her face that she has feelings for him. So Jeremiah seems offended that Conrad's not joining them for ice cream, but ultimately they part ways. Belly and Jeremiah go out for ice cream, and Conrad heads home. So as we get closer and closer to the wedding, this episode just gets messier and juicier, but that's just part of the fun as we continue to unpack it together.